Hello and welcome to Aspects of Writing. I'm your host, James Kelly. My co-host is Janet Geursey, and the topic of the show is Dreamers Writing for Success. Our guest is Romay Cupido, and it's Romay. A lot of people might think I'm pronouncing that wrong. It's not Romay, it's Romay. She is a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and an acclaimed author of 8 books. Her writing is based on real-life experiences. Romay's mission is to help other women lead more passionate lives. Originally from Cape Town, South Africa, Romay has spent her adulthood in Europe, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Having realized her dream as an accomplished author, she has learned to put value toward what is most important in life, her family. Her vision is to inspire dreams, while she personally reaches to achieve higher goals. I'll get this right, Romay, I promise. Romay is also on a mission to encourage the youth of our world to read, to inspire creativity, as she does with her own son. She lives by the concept, healthy mind, healthy body. Romay has always been accused of being a dreamer, but she does not let that shake her focus or her confidence. Romay, what else can you tell us about you?
Well, thanks for having me, James. Nice meeting you, Jan.
Nice meeting you.
I have been writing for 12 years. But James, as a writer yourself, let's get a little serious.
Okay.
You know, we all get stuck in bad company.
Uh-huh.
And at one or other time, writers has to realize what realities are and where they should be taking their writing. Because I have a passion for writing. And I hear so many writers say that I have a passion, but we also want to get somewhere with my writing. So for me, the reality set in that what am I going to do to get somewhere?
Uh-huh.
And I went following the writers that are already achieving success. I followed their methods. I went searching and realized that I have to invest in myself. So it's learning, read, ask.
Uh-huh.
And that's how we get the information we need. That's how we get how these writers that had invested 30 years, 40 years to find exactly what to do. That's the methods that writers have to get to. Go and ask them. And in the process of developing myself, I became to this mindset that this is my dream.
Uh-huh.
This is my life. I have to do something about it. And to appreciate something, you need gratitude.
I want to ask you something before we get too far into the dream aspect, because we're going to use the last part of the show for most of this. A lot of the listeners like to know about our authors. They want to know, how did you get to this? Because sometimes people put a stumbling block in their own way, thinking, I can't do this. You actually grew up in South Africa, Cape Town. What led you to Europe, and what was that experience like getting to where you are now, which is Finland?
Well, I left South Africa as a young girl and with a dream in your head. And if you're in a place and a time where you feel I'm not going to get anywhere here, but the concept of you are enough who you are as an individual, you then have to uncover, how am I going to open this Pandora's box?
Right.
And if you're stuck in a place where you feel like, how am I going to get to the next stop? I don't have money. I don't have experience. I just have stories in my head. But all writers are storytellers. At the end of the day, who does the fixing? Editors. Editors do our fixing. We tell the stories.
Right.
Yes.
I had many stories to share.
So how did you get to Europe?
I went through.
Oh, sorry.
I left home very young. And mind you, at the time when I left, I had a very young son. So I was a single mother.
Oh.
I was a mum with a son, taking the responsibility of what to do next. And my focus changed. You know, when we have something that deter us, something that gives us that drive, that determination, it opens up so many idealism of when you're listening to recordings of Jack Canfield, Jay Abram, Brian Tracy. These are the things I did since I was very young. I listened to all these inspirational characters because they were all successful writers.
Right.
But I realized that they were teaching other writers. And
Yes.
I went learning. And it's the quickest and easiest thing to do for other authors is to go out, search for the things that are available for free.
Now,
YouTube is full.
So did you want?
Sorry?
Did you chose to go to Europe then? You wanted to explore.
Yes, I chose to go chasing after my dream. I wanted to go somewhere where I can have an opportunity to start somewhere. At the time in South Africa, when I was at that age where I didn't have the possibilities or the idealisms or the characters, and you have to remember, I ran with a book under my arm from Maya Angelou.
Oh.
With her talking, with her love, the way she wrote, the reality and the passion and just the earnestness in which she told her stories, it made me squeak. And, you know, when I did dancing, James, I used to sit in my dancing class with my points because we had to stretch and we had to warm up. So I used to sit on my points with my feet warming up, like on my points, on my blocks. But my book was lying on the floor. And I was waiting. So that is as much as how I was involved with. I loved reading.
So you've always had a passion for
everywhere.
writing.
My mom
Then
always used to say that I'm not meant to walk.
you've always had that passion for writing. Then.
I've always had the passion. And even when I said to friends, you know, at a stupid age of 10, 11 or 12, and you say, oh, I'm going to be a famous writer someday. Of course, they laugh. It's ridiculous. You know, it's ridiculous. But for me, it was one day I'm going to make my dream my reality. So therefore, I needed to go somewhere.
It's unusual for a girl of that age, though, to have such a dream and
passion.
And passion, and to run after it so wholeheartedly. When I was 12, I don't remember having a single thought in my head.
But I like the idea. So where all did you go in Europe, and what was that experience like?
I had been to France, the south of France. I've lived in Switzerland, in Basel, for a little bit over a year. And these were all things that it gave me that extra drive that I was on my own. And I needed to find some way to capture the essence of who I really was. And it was in Europe that discovery, that determination, it came more full circle. I've been passionate. I've been full of joy. I've always been a very easy, loving person. And that's what evolved into my brand, Joy, Love.
Yeah.
And I carry it through my books. I carry them through my books because I've always had that drive and passion. So I want to share with other women. It's irrespective of where you are or where you find yourself. When you find that inner you, everything comes bottled out of you. It becomes that self-acclaimed, individual. And for me to put it down on paper became the easiest thing. I don't know why, but it became the most fun to write about things. I used to sit in my bed at night. I know most young women were socializing and they wanted relationships. I wanted to write. I sat at night in my bed. I used to help my son with his homework when he came from school. And when he went to bed, I went to work. I used to sit up in my bed. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night was my best time. I used to get creative.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
everything just came. Everything came.
Well, what
Wow.
about, how did you end up in Finland?
I thought because my son's father were Finnish,
Okay.
and
Ah.
I were divorced from him, so I went to Finland because it was easier. I already had the connection. But
Uh-huh.
although I've been to England, I've been to France, I've been to Switzerland, it was where would be the easiest at the time for me to go, and I chose Finland because the connection was there.
And so
Uh-huh.
does his father still live there, your ex-husband?
No.
No.
My son and I lived on our own since the day I arrived in Finland.
Okay.
We've been on our own.
Okay.
We took care of each other. We
But-
grew up together.
So is his father, though, does his father live in Finland or no?
No, we have no connection
Oh, you
at
have no
all.
connection. Okay.
At all.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm married.
Oh, you're
I'm
okay.
A beautiful
Because I
husband.
thought you were.
I'm
yeah.
married to the most incredible partner. Yeah.
Okay, good. So you found
Marvelous.
happiness again. That's great. Now, I
Yes,
wanted to ask
yes,
you,
absolutely.
now you wrote a book, you co-authored a book called Mastering the Art of Success with Jack Canfield. How did that come
Yes.
about? How did that come about?
Jack became my mentor over the years of working with him, doing programs with him, doing projects and things, learning with Jack. He became my mentor. He became the person that I asked questions to. It's with him that I learned that authors should realize it's the most easiest thing to ask. Keep asking. Even if somebody say no, keep asking. And that's what I did with him because he preached that. And the idea came from Jack because his method is to help other authors. But when authors are serious, his inner heart, his inner boy is to share. And
Uh-huh.
he taught us that to share. So he liked working with other writers or new writers. He liked to inspire them or lift them a little bit. So the idea came from Jack. And the idea was to have other authors that have a message of their own. And the art means we all have something different to bring.
Yeah.
And the art of success, it brings so many different life concepts together. And when he asked me to do the project with him, I thought it was a little bit daunting. I never thought I'd write a book with someone else. But learning with Jack was, we need, for better publishing, authors have to remember this. You need credibilities. You need collaborations. So he always inspired that to look for opportunities to collaborate. Because one person rises the other up.
Yes.
And having a book with Jack, I cannot even begin to tell you what that meant for me in credibilities and collaborations. Because when that book launched and we all became bestsellers, like boom, overnight, people that has never ever written a book that is in that book automatically had a credibility that they could stick to their business. Jack Canfield, what better credibility in the man himself?
Yeah.
And Jack, so the idea came from Jack, and all of us became the different art aspects that contributed to the book. So the title came from Jack as well. And with that collaboration came more collaborations. I did a co-producing with J. Abram.
Oh.
A few months. I went to LA, and it's about his life story. And the man on preeminence cannot be more prominent to learn from. And within 15 minutes that I had an interview with him, and you have to remember with J. Abram, you pay $5,000 an hour for his time.
Really?
We cannot afford that. When we small little authors coming up, we cannot afford to contact J. Abram for a 1 hour session.
Right.
But within 15 minutes that I was in his presence, I have a video with him as well that I constantly revive through my blogs and through my sites so other authors can see credibility's work. Within that 15 minutes, he gave me a shortage of 40% that I can still utilize in my business.
Oh, good.
40%. So it shows credibilities. It rises us. It gives us new opportunities. It showcases us that we're serious, and it helps us when we want to get better publishing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Collaboration is one of the things that we've talked about numerous times on this show, and it's absolutely essential. But what are you working on now? What do you got going?
I had I've written some romance books, and I've written my poetry book, and my poetry book is very connected to my own emotions, like my emotions on my sleeve, what I've gone through, what I've experienced, my emotions, my ups, my downs, and it's relatable. So that my poetry book, for example, will be my future gift or charity, or what I want to work for, giving back. That's a book I using as a future project for giving back. But then the romance novels that I wrote, they are now in the process with subs from Random and Penguin House. So 3 books, romance novels, is going through repackaging. And then
Oh, slight connect. Yeah, we'll hold on here for just a minute and see what happens. We are talking to Romay from Helsinki, Finland. So it's probably quite common that we're going to have a disconnect here. So just hold on here. Well, we're talking about dreams today. I don't know if you can hear us, Romay, or not. We're having audible problems. Your video stopped, so hopefully it'll connect again in a minute. If not, she'll call back, I'm sure. So, yeah, she's connecting again. So, we'll just hold on here. But this is what happens in radio.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about the collaborations, because people don't even realize that it's not even an author talking to another author and giving them that perspective of what they're thinking on what this person's writing. But your friends, you can collaborate with friends without them even knowing they're collaborating by the feedback they give you from what you've written.
Right. And a little bit, I think, of what she was trying to hint at, too, is that collaborations isn't always co-authoring a book.
That's right.
Collaborations is having someone read your book or help you with your book.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of like networking. It's like, I know with my last novel, I had like 4 or 5 people who read my book and helped me with it. So I think she's kind of hinting a little bit about that's part of what collaboration isn't always co-authoring a book.
Right.
So.
Okay,
are we back?
We're back.
Okay.
Yeah. We were just discussing the simple fact that because you're in Finland and this is the internet, it could happen again, and it looks like it may be happening again. Can you move your head or something?
All right, we're going to pick up where we left off. Go ahead, Romay. Can you hear us?
So my life story book, yes, I hear you fine.
Okay.
My life story book is not published yet because I received an opportunity to turn the script into a screenplay.
Oh.
And that's what I'm working on at present, that my book, life story book, have a movie adaptation. And my producer, Brad Luff, has asked me to withhold a little bit because I'm like a giddy girl, that I don't talk too much about the script idea and the story at present, because the whole idea is that nobody knows too much about it because they're changing the script to screenplay. So that I will have to leave for a later opportunity so that you have me back.
Absolutely.
Marvelous.
Good ploy.
So now tell me a little bit about your book of poetry. Now you say you're going to save this as well. So give us a little hint on some of it.
Yes, the book of poetry, it's my emotions on my sleeve. It's basically connecting with other women, things we've been through, things we've experienced, the heartbreak, the dream, the going after the dream. And for me, it's always been the concept of how I want to love and how I want to be loved. And that's what brings the dream concept to being accused that you're a dreamer, you're living in a dream. These things doesn't exist anymore. But then on the other hand, I'm living in a country where dreaming is far-fetched. It's not reality. Get a job, pay the bills. Where for me, I have no other concept of this is my dream. I'm about to achieve it, and there's nothing on earth that's going to deter me from that direction. So it's the same in the poetry. I bring out my feelings to the point of completion because I want other women to get the concept that, yes, we mothers.
Well, while we're waiting to reconnect, because they're having a storm in Helsinki today, and that's part of the problem. She was sharing with us before we went back on air that there is a thunderstorm going on there where she is. So that's why we're having problems connecting. And Romay, at any time you can hear us, just chime right back in. I wanted to hit on something she said. She made the comment about the fact that in where she is now, which is Helsinki, Finland, that people don't believe in dreamers.
Right.
But in the U.S., even though contrary to what we hear all the time, like this is the land of dreams, how many times have you heard growing up, you're just dreaming, you need to get a job?
Yes. Yeah. Or stop dreaming.
Or stop dreaming.
Stop
You
dreaming.
need to get a job.
Yeah.
And do you know how to reconnect over there? You need me to come over and do that. We'll see what happens. Maybe she'll come right back up on the screen. So we'll just hold off her for a minute. But in any case, it isn't. I think people have a misconception of the U.S. that because we're dubbed the land of dreams, that it's okay to be a dreamer. But how many actors have you heard say, "Oh, my parents said, set you on a path of being a doctor or an attorney, and they didn't support you," or sometimes
Right.
you hear they
Absolutely.
have, but a lot of times it's the opposite of that. They haven't supported you. And that's true for everyone.
Yeah.
It's like quit dreaming, get a job.
Right. Right.
So it's the same here in the U.S. as it is anywhere else. It's no
Well,
different.
when you hear about somebody from Omaha, Nebraska, that's now a big movie star,
Yeah.
you don't think of Omaha, Nebraska as a place where actors come from. You think of Hollywood as where actors come from,
Right.
and New York, and even with dancing, the little girl in Polk County, Des Moines, Iowa. You don't think of her as a prima ballerina,
No.
but you have to come from somewhere. So if you have a dream, it matters not where you are; it matters that you dream.
Yeah, these are the technicalities.
Maybe we should send her a plane ticket, have her come
I know.
here,
Be in the studio.
sit in the studio, give
we
the
don't
interview.
charge $5,000 an hour, so she can come and
That's
be here
right.
for free.
There you go.
So anyway, see what's happening. That's what this show is about, though. It's dreamers. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, and my philosophy: if you can dream it, you can write it, and I
Right.
truly do believe that. And
Yeah.
and that's why I wanted her on the show, because she did this on her own. She took off on her own with her own child, went to Europe, lived on her own, supported them, and
Unbelievable.
she's accomplished a lot.
Yes.
She's a bestseller. She does lectures and it's all over the place. So it's kind of interesting. Now you heard her say they're doing a movie on her life. So.
Yeah. Marvelous.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
All right, so we're picking up where we left off, and again, and this is what goes on. We were just talking about how this is what happens in radio. So I wanted to ask you. All right, you had mentioned dreamers, and we're talking about dreamers, and you had also mentioned how many people are published in the United States. There are 1,000 people published every year in the United States. Is that right?
Yes.
A year? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is that every
Month.
month?
1,000 people a month.
Oh, yeah, something like that. No,
Yeah.
it's actually more than that. There's 720,000 authors published every year in the United States. That's a day. So, it's amazing the competition. Now, when we say that, we're not talking about just novels. We're talking about people who write things for business, and there's various books out there, but there are 1,000 titles published every day, and that is what the competition is like in the United States. And the reason I wanted to talk about that, Romay, is because it's a little bit with what you were talking about earlier, is that it can put a damper on your dreams, because you're thinking, well, what, the competition's so fierce, how can I even compete? And I think when you're a dreamer and you're thinking about what you want to accomplish, you have to put that out of your mind. You just have to set it aside and say, I'm going to achieve this. Because if you don't try, you will always regret having not done so.
No. But the difference that I've been inspired with was having a preemptive mind. The difference is preeminence. I was taught that by J. Abraham. Is understanding the difference of setting yourself apart. Because even if the three of us have the same message, it's how you present the message to your audience. Even if we say exactly the same thing. But if you tell something the way you live it, it makes things real to the person listening.
All right. So, Romay, tell the audience what you're saying, what JJ meant by preeminence. Explain what you're talking about there.
So preeminence is a concept where you realize the difference of setting yourself apart. Is learning to understand the methodology of, even though our message is the same, but how you're saying it, relating to the person listening to you, is understanding how you, the very essence of how you live in your life, the very essence of how you present, connect, and make the person see that I've been there, I've done that. If I can do it, so can you.
So sometimes sometimes it's the personality then that has to come forward to get the message across.
Because it's authenticity. It's authenticity. People buy people. People do not buy books. They buy people. What you are saying.
That's what I wanted to hear.
It relates to me, even though you say and Jan say the same message, but it's relating. It's that authenticity that make people see the person. I'm a mom. I struggled raising my son, but I'm living. I'm joyful. I'm grateful for what I have.
Yes.
And if you understand the difference of the gratitude of what you already have in your life, you take things from there. It sets you apart. If people see the you, people see the person.
Yeah.
But if Romay had struggled raising a son, and I have a beautiful son, I have the most incredible husband. Why? Because I've realized my gratitude, the things I already had, the things that was already in my life was enough.
Yeah. And because you didn't have a simple life, weren't born with a spoon in your mouth. You raised your son on your own. People might say, well, pity me, poor me, how can I do this? But you're an example of what we're talking about. It doesn't matter your economic background.
Right.
Or your social background necessarily, your socialistic background. It depends on you. You have to want it. You have to go forward with it and present it in a way, like you said, the success that you wrote the books, but then you had to go out there and you had to market those books. And this is a little bit of what we're talking about. It isn't that you wrote the books, because the dreamer part was to become a successful author.
Yeah.
But then you had to make it happen. You can't just sit back and let someone else do it for you. You have to make it happen.
Yeah, you can't wait, because nobody will do anything for you. It comes to responsibility. You have to take the responsibility for yourself. No one else is going to do it for you. So you have to go out looking. You have to go out searching. And authors make the mistake of thinking that I've written a great book. How come nobody sees us? If you don't put yourself out there, nobody's going to come looking for you. You have to make the opportunities. That's what I did. I made the opportunities. I asked. I contacted people, I searched, I looked how they were doing things, and I did exactly the same. They did the work all 30, 40 years.
Right.
When Abram sat opposite me and said to me, Romay, you have 40% that's still missing from your business. I didn't know that. I didn't know something was missing.
Uh-huh.
But if you ask and you listen to those that has already done it, they show you the way. Successful people always leave crumbs. You should be willing to pick them up and do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
I've asked online, for example, many authors ask me, how is it possible that you got a book into a screenplay? How can you're a new author?
Uh-huh.
How? It's investing in myself.
Right.
I'm Romay, my brand. I've evolved my brand around what I'm saying. I live what I'm saying. If I talk about happiness, if I talk about love, I use the word work.
And
I have to work for it.
I think this is what we're talking about here too. It's one thing to be a dreamer and to have dreams, but you also have to have action. You have to act on those dreams. You have to make those dreams come into fruition. You do it. You know, so the dream isn't just having the imagination or the idea in your mind. It's a mindset. You have to go out there and make this happen. So dreaming is beyond just what you imagine in the mind.
Yeah. Because if you visualize your dream, you make it real for yourself.
Yeah.
So visualization comes with taking action. Your dream, your plans, it evolves from your goals that become one step at a time, growing to where you want to be. So it's getting the authenticity of who you are, realizing that you are enough right where you are. Take their dreams, evolve it into goals, that it becomes a plan, a step plan. And I cannot say more. Write down the things. Write it down. Make it real to you. I can show you on my fridge, I have a check that I've written out and I put a number in that check. You know, Jack Canfield did that when he was earning very little money. He wrote a check and he put it on the ceiling. So every night he used to lie back and he used to look at that check. Every step I make for the amount that I want to earn, I make it real for myself. I write myself out a check. I stick it on my fridge. My goal plans, my focus plan, my dreams, my next step is laid out. What I'm going after, what's next, and you make things real.
Do you know who the actor Jim Carrey is?
Yes.
Okay, he did that. He wrote a check to himself for, I think it was $10 million, with the idea that one day he would be able to cash that check.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's safe to say he has no problem today.
Yeah.
So if I tell authors or LinkedIn connectors and they ask me, Romay, I'd like to collaborate with you. I'd like to do something with you. And I say, what would you like to do? And they tell me what they'd like to do. And I tell them, write that check that you want to earn collaborating, working, doing a project with someone. Make it real and then convince me.
Now, there's another side to this being a dreamer other than just monetary. Because oftentimes, and this is my side, I don't think monetarily. So for me, my accomplishment as an author is to be published.
Yes.
I've never thought about the monetary. I can't say I've never thought about the monetary aspect of it, but it's not something I've ever dwelt. I don't dwell on it. So there are two sides to dreaming. In other words, it's what you want. What is your goal as a dreamer? If it's just to go out there and have a little notoriety, or in my case, it's always been to help other people with what they want to do. Sometimes you have to show a little bit of accomplishment in order for people to help them, because they're always thinking, if you haven't done this, how can you tell us?
Right.
which is why, by the way, I have someone like you on the show.
Yeah.
Because I haven't done that yet. And I always turn to the experts to help, with the audience understand there are ways of doing it. So sometimes even if you're a dreamer, you don't have to have the accomplishment to help other people achieve their dreams. That's the way I see things. But you're talking about from a monetary standpoint, and that is important. If that is your goal, then you have to have it in mind, and you have to say, how am I going to do this? If you don't know how, then how do I go out there and find out how to do this? And that's what you do.
Yes, I encourage authors to go and find out how to do things and to learn how to do things better from one step to the next, and have a purpose goal, because part of your strategy is to have a purpose, because the biggest end goal, or to part of your back end, to secure your back end, is to have a purpose. What is your purpose that you're working towards? Because if you don't have something to give back at the end of the day, things also become irrelevant.
Right.
So having relevancy, and part of being an individual or having authenticity is having not just a structured plan for success, but part of success is giving. Because if you have nothing to give, if you have nothing to share, you've accomplished nothing.
I want to ask you, do you know who Mimi Emanuel is?
No, but I've heard of it.
Mimi is a best-selling author in Australia, and we had her on last week. And what's interesting is you guys are saying things that are really hit home and are parallel. Mimi literally sent me a copy of her book, and it's a huge book. And her book is on how to book launchings. I used to do lectures on book launchings here, but after having seen what she's written, I know nothing. And it's kind of what you said. You can learn from other people. Even if you think you know everything, you probably don't.
No.
So it's always good to open your mind and look and see what other people have done. And this industry changes constantly. So I'm so thankful to her for having sent me that book. Not just so I'll have something later on to talk about on the show, but also because it's going to help me as an author when I go out to present my books. Because I don't know it all. And when I see her book, I realize I know nothing. So
I notice how you always say that, but you always seem to get everybody launched and off onto a successful road.
But they could always do it better. And there's always someone who can show you how to do it better.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And having the willingness to learn, having the willingness to broaden out and to expand, because that's the whole purpose, is learning. That's why it's important for authors also to read. I read anything and everything, because we have to learn, even if it's not a genre you write about. I write fiction as well as nonfiction, but I like to see the way other people say things, put things, the concept, their way of thinking, their mind frame, where the heart comes from, where they connect, where does minds meet. I like to know more, because the more you know, the better of a writer you become. Even if it's something completely out of your field. But, the concept idea that J. Abram also brought out is to use the geometric system. What can I learn from you? What can I learn from this writer? How can I use a concept that different authors, different writers, different businesses, because as authors, we also have to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
Our brand have to be a business, because then we develop in purpose, we develop as experts, we develop in a process of giving back, how more to learn, how can we develop things into workshops, because if I get interest from universities in India that say, we would love you to come and have a seminar, we would love you to give some input as an expert on your field, because writing a book makes you an expert in experience.
Yes.
I would rather, if I have two applicants that come for a job and they want to work for me, I take experience above a degree, because the experience already know how to do it.
That's so interesting, because there was a time in my life when I was going for a job and I was in college, and that came up in the seminar. Really, it was a seminar, and we talked about that. And this person said, not that the college degree doesn't matter, because it does. You know, everyone, we need to be knowledgeable, but at the same time, I want to know what experience you have. Have you done this before? Because you've already learned through experience.
Yes.
We often associate a college degree as having knowing what to do and how to do it. But that's not true. It gives you tools to learn from. You know, the learning experience is in doing it.
Yeah. It's all attitude change, because we now living in a world, in an environment where even the high level university degrees is struggling to get work.
Right.
Yes.
So it's skills. I always emphasize, even my own son learns skills, because if you can't get a job in your learned or degree field, you are capable of doing something else, or you are capable of going somewhere else, because the world is becoming so small, and as authors, we see this every day. Every day. I travel to LA, I travel to India, I travel around Europe, I travel so many places in the world. And if young girls in Slovenia, which is in Europe, it's so small, you know, communities, but the young people all speak English because of the internet world. Everybody lives on internet.
Yes.
So it's English. And if you ask the young people around Scandinavia, around Europe, that what is the first skill you want to learn? English. Because the world becomes so small that they can go anywhere. They can go to Holland, they can go to Belgium, they can go to France, and they can get jobs where English is required if you want to work online, if you want to work with the internet, everything, computers. So it's skills.
Right.
It is skill.
Well, getting back to writing and the dreamers, when it comes to writing, I think one of the things we have to point out, and we say this all the time on the show, and it is so true, your method of going out there and presenting yourself to the world would not necessarily fit for me or for Jan or for anyone. And that's part of what you have to figure out is what fits for you. That doesn't mean to not look at what you do, because it's very important to learn from what you're teaching, but to take what you're teaching and develop it in a specific way that fits for you.
That's for you, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what sets us apart when things become our own.
Otherwise we become a cookie cutter. We're the same. And you don't want to be the same. You want to stand out. You want to be different.
Yeah, exactly. I empathize with so many authors that say, I have such a great book, but if you don't set yourself apart in showing, nobody's going to know. No,
right.
Because there could be writers that is much better than you or me, but nobody knows. So even if you have a great book or you think it's a great book, but nobody knows. So I personally would like, because if I can get a connection with a Hollywood insider that I personally ask, can I introduce new writers? Because I know in a million years, new writers do not get discovered unless accidentally, or unless they go out and they have a connection. In Hollywood, it's a small market. You have to have money or know somebody or have a connection.
Right.
I studied so much. I became connected with J. Abrams, with Brian Tracy, with Jack Canfield, with so many in the field that has been pioneers for years searching to find the right methodology to teach, but they help other people.
Right.
So when I ask, can I connect new writers? My producer is Luff, Brad Luff. He laughs when he speaks to me because I'm like a 10-year-old. I'm too excitable. I'm like excited about everything. So he laughs when we talk about things because I'm me. I'm real. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And I asked because when I got the first phone call, and the company I work through said that we're interested in a book of yours. Would you like to give us a book? And then he said to me, my wife read one of your love stories, and she said, you got to get this author. You have to find out who she is. You have a funny name. You have a really funny name. And by the way, ask her, what does that mean? So, and when I got this phone call, I was at the time with Steve Harris, and I was working online with Quantum Leap, and he picked me up through Quantum Leap because Quantum Leap is a whole year program, and he had picked me up through Quantum Leap and the interviews and the things that we do and the radio station interviews that we get. And he thought, I'm in your face. I pick a topic and I'm real. Grow up, you're not 20, you know?
Uh-huh.
He had read some of my blogs that I've written, and he said to me, I would like one of your books. So I said, I was at the time busy writing my life story book, and he said to me, when the script is done, I want you to send it to me. I said, but the book is not edited yet. You know, we go crazy, we think, you know,
Yeah.
you don't want anybody to see your mistakes. And, you know, he
Right.
said to me, we don't care about the mistakes. You can have the book edited afterwards. We want the story.
Right.
Aha.
Then when the script was done, I sent an email because I wanted to make 100% sure that it was truly him. And I sent him an email, and then he sent me an email back, and he said, ha ha. And I thought, okay, this is hilarious. So I said again an email. I said, okay, I sent you my script because the ha was real. So I sent an email and I said, attaches my script. And then he sent me an email personally and he said, got it. And then he just sent again an email to say, your contact will contact you to let you know exactly what to do next. And that was the process. And then I phoned him because in the email where he said, ha ha, you also sent his personal telephone number.
Uh-huh.
So I thought I would phone him. And please don't tell my husband because he had to pay for the call. Because I phoned him and said that if I find other authors that I can introduce, can I introduce new authors? So he said to me, if you find a good story, and he gave me the kind of stories that they're looking for, if you find a good story, if you find a good connection with a serious author, then you connect me.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. So you can tell other authors today, if they're serious, they can contact me.
Yeah, and I do that all the time. You know, even on my website, I encourage. I will be honest with you. I'd like to interview. Usually, I'll try and have 2 or 3 authors on the show. Lately, I've been having one because I have an expert like yourself, or like Mimi, or a story like Paul we just had yesterday. But normally, I try to have 2 to 3 authors on, at least 2. And the reason for that is I want to have a novice on, someone who hasn't accomplished anything. Or maybe doesn't have their book out yet, and they're the dreamer trying to get it done, so that I can have someone who is accomplished help mentor them in a way. And that's what this show is all about. It's really about mentoring and letting people know you can do this. You have to find your way, but you can do this.
Yeah.
Do you find
So
a
I
lot
would
of it is...
appreciate-
I'm sorry.
I would appreciate that because I want to help other authors to get at the same level and growing, keep moving forward, and have a brand message of their own that they can then in turn continue to teach somebody else.
Do you
That's the
find
whole
it's your attitude that gets you above and beyond everyone else? That as long as your attitude is that you are the winner, you are the person?
No. I continually learning. I never ever put myself in a bracket that I think that I'm above anyone else. I'm way too humble for that.
Good
And I
girl.
agree with that too. I feel the
Good.
same way. I've never felt like that Well, I never feel like I know more than anyone else because I don't.
No, I don't.
Every
I
show
have
I
too
learn
much
something.
to learn. Yeah, I have too much to learn still. I appreciate learning more. I appreciate learning from others because even sometimes unbeknown to even new authors, they don't realize we still pick up things from them.
Sure.
We also learn something through them. So that I appreciate is that we always have to be willing to give and not just take. So
And
in a
you,
way, they also give to us.
right. And Romay, I have to tell you this as well. I often sometimes learn from the novice, from someone who hasn't accomplished anything yet, because they ask questions that I might not have heard before. And I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. You know, and it makes me want to go out and find out for them. So sometimes I learn as much from the novice as I do the accomplished.
Exactly. And it is so phenomenal. And I had so much feedback, for example, with a poetry book. I remember from India quite a few years back, I had a gentleman that contacted me. He was just becoming one of these new actors or studying to become an actor. And he recently got married. He said he bought the poetry book because he wanted to connect with himself. And he thought he wanted to buy a book from a female. He wanted, because usually love stories and it's women buy these books. It's mostly women I speak to about these things. And it was so strange that it was a gentleman because he had read one of my blogs and it was about, why would you treat a woman in this aspect when you in the beginning said, I love you,
Right.
and now things has changed. So what changed? Because a good bottle of wine mature with age. So why does a marriage or a love relationship get stale with age? Because we forget to work on things.
Right.
My husband and I date all the time.
Yeah.
And if we forget, we remind each other that we have to go on a date. But we already married. But it's forgetting how important the person is that's presently in your life, because our ideal of living is that we forget the past, we are in the present, but we have to live for the future so that we can be present.
I want to touch on something. We got to go back because, we had the audio problem with the connection.
Yeah.
And there was something you said before we lost our connection. You were talking about where you live, and we were talking about dreamers. And America is known as the land of dreamers. But in reality, Janet and I were talking in between when we were waiting for your signal to come back. Even though we say that, having grown up, and I hear it all the time, you cannot imagine how many times someone is told, I want to be an actor or I want to be a writer, and the parent will say, stop dreaming, get your degree, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right.
So even in the land of dreamers, you still get that negativity from people who they want to squelch your dream. And I think that's important to understand that, you know what, sometimes you do have to maintain a lifestyle. You have to have a living. So it's okay to maybe get the degree and create a lifestyle, but don't give up on the dream. And I forgot the guy's name, but there's an actor out there. He's an Asian actor who's been in several movies, and he's a doctor.
Yes.
But his dream was always, it's Ken something. But he always had the dream of being an actor, and he hasn't let the fact that he did become a doctor stop him from becoming an actor, because that was his dream. And I think that's important for dreamers to understand.
Yeah, because there's a big difference with reality and living your dream
Right.
as a reality.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that is a complete different concept of how you see things, how you perceive things, because that's what stirs you to action. I live in a society where dreaming does not exist.
Yeah.
Because society predicts, we have to get a job, and a job is anything to pay the bills. But many people get stuck. They get stuck in the most important thing of your bills need to be paid, and they forget to live.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we don't dream, we cannot live.
I agree.
If I have to stop dreaming, I'm not living. I'm
Right.
then dead.
Right.
I'm not gonna feel like I'm me. I now have to do something that society says that I have to do to survive. Yes, we have to survive. And believe me, I did so many things to survive. But so did Jay Abram. So did Jack Canfield.
Right.
So did Brian Tracy. And you know the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Right.
He's a foreigner. His English sucked. But when he was interviewed, and the interviewer said to him, how could you have written a best-selling book? I've written for so many years and my English is perfect and you can hardly speak English.
Right.
He took the book and he turned the book around and he said, you know what it says there on the top? It says best-selling author. It doesn't say best writing author. I'm telling a story. I'm telling my story.
Right.
Editors do my corrections. I'm not an editor. I'm a storyteller.
You know, and I think this is an important show because people need to understand. I hear so many times I'm stuck in a rut. I'm on this treadmill that I can't get off of. And it's because they're not dreaming. And it's like you said, you've given up on the dream. And that's where the problem is. You're stuck in a rut because you're not allowing yourself to dream anymore.
Yeah. So just breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pick up where you left off. Continue with that dream.
No.
Well, we're running out of time, so I would like to thank our guest, Romay Cupido. And I want to give you a last minute here. Give me some good advice.
If you ever want your story to be your heart, your emotions, your joy, your love, express it. Express it. Don't be afraid of who you are and don't be afraid to say how you feel. Live life with joy. Live life with love, because then you become the passionate person on a piece of paper.
Thank you, Romay. Now, Romay, tell us one more time where we can find your work and your website.
My website?
Yes.
romaybooks.com, as my name, ROMAY, romaybooks.com. And LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, Romay6. I'm on Twitter, Romay6. Instagram, Romay Cupido. I'd love authors to connect with me. I'd love the audience to connect with me and ask me how.
And your books are available on Amazon and all the outlets. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. To find links to our guests, just go to our website, aspectsofwriting.com. There you'll find links to our guest. There you'll also find links to the videos as well as to the archive show. We are syndicated on iHeartRadio as well, so you can go to iHeartRadio and listen to our show anytime. iTunes. We broadcast live at 1 o'clock on Saturdays Pacific Standard Time on AMFM247.com. We're on Roku TV. We have 14 terrestrial stations, so just check out aspectsofwriting.com for those. We archive all the shows on Aspects of Writing. So just go to aspectsofwriting.com. And we also do Blog Talk Radio now on Sundays at 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, so you can tune into Blog Talk Radio. So until next week, this is your... Oh, and I want to thank Jan for being on the show with us. Thank you, Romay, again for being on the show.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Jan.
Nice meeting you.
Well, until next week, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it. Thanks again, Romay.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.